Chapter 38 of Wheelock once again gets us through a few different topics very quickly. So here we have relative clauses of characteristic. So a relative clause, you recall, is simply a clause that begins with a relative pronoun. Who, which in Latin, of course, is quis, quae, or quo for the dative. So, but now it's a relative clause followed by a subjunctive verb. So the relative clause begins with a relative pronoun, and then the verb in that clause is subjunctive, and this changes the meaning of the clause. In what way does it change it? Well, here, take a look at these examples. You notice in these two sentences there's only one letter different. Legant is present indicative active. Legant is subjunctive present active. Okay, so in the regular indicative, this sentence is, this is a book which, there's my relative pronoun, which, quem, which all men, omnes, all men read. This is a book which all men read. And that means that it's a fact, and so it might be the Bible, right? So this is a book which everybody reads. That's what we would say in English. We'd say everybody. Which everybody reads. If it's in the subjunctive, it's a relative clause of characteristic. The subjunctive is describing a characteristic of the relative pronoun. So this is a book. So it's the sort which everybody reads. Or in English we would say, this is the kind of book everybody reads. So this one is, this states a fact, that this is a book which everybody reads, as opposed to, this is the kind of book that everybody reads. Relative clause of characteristic. So again, just be able to recognize a relative pronoun followed by a subjunctive automatically tells you relative clause of characteristic. The next topic is the dative of reference. So on page 324 now, just another usage of the dative. Again, it fits in with how we usually take our datives. We just translate them with to or for. So here's the first example. Si quis metuens vivit. If somebody lives fearing, if somebody lives in fear, liber mihi non erit umquam. Non erit umquam. He will not ever be free. And then what's this mihi doing? Well, it just means to me. If somebody lives being afraid, to me, he will never be free. So it means, just like we use that phrase to me in English, in reference to myself, what I think. And then here's another example. Claudia est sapiens. Claudia is wise, multis, to many people. So in the eyes of many people, Claudia is wise. To many, Claudia is a wise person. She seems to many people to be that. So again, it's just a simple, another use of the dative, nothing to get excited about. And then the supine. The supine is actually a whole nother part of speech. It's another verbal noun, like the infinitive. But for our purposes in classical Latin, it's very rarely used, and it's really only used in two ways. But so it only has two cases, the accusative laudatum and the ablative laudatu, and then all the other conjugations, monetum monetu, actum actu, aditum aditu, captum captu. Only two usages that we're going to care about. One of them is this kind of exclamatory use, mirabile dictu, amazing to say, or facile factu, that's easy to do. Or that's the only way that the ablative is used. Ablative supine is used. And the accusative supine is just used with verbs of motion to indicate purpose. So ebant, they went, rogatum, to ask. They went to ask for money. Now in English we would just use the infinitive there. In this very limited case, Latin uses the supine. So you should be able to recognize, hey, this is obviously from a verb. In fact, it looks like the perfect passive participle, doesn't it? But here it's actually this archaic form, the supine. Again, be able to recognize it when you come across in a translation. It's but it's not something that's going to happen very often. Work on numbers 1 and 11 for the translations after you've looked over the vocabulary for lesson 38 here and looked over, these the relative clause of characteristic. Again, relatively short chapter because we're just getting just the little bits of grammar that we haven't got already as we close out the book. Then work on these translations before moving on to get your corrected translations in the next video.